right, of every programming language statement, then this is the error we have. Similarly, right, if you're not indenting it, right, so again we are getting a syntax, right? If you're not indenting it, again we are getting an indentation error. So there are, right, the most common errors in programming languages are syntax errors. So it is like saying, right, if you don't follow the rules of English, right? So suppose, right, you're writing a sentence in English, and if it is not grammatically correct, then it is a syntax error. Okay. But right, in real world, you are also able to write sentences, right, which are not grammatically correct, but still, right, it will infer the meaning to others. But in programming languages, it is not the thing, right? So every programming language statement, it has to be understandable by compiler. So if it has to be understandable by compiler, it has to be written in a certain format, and that format is what we mean by syntax, right? So so omitting this colon, right, or not doing this indentation, so these are throwing some error. So these errors are syntax errors. And other kind of errors are while you are running your program, right, you may get an error. See, it may be syntactically correct, right? So when you go and check for the syntax of the programming language statement, it is perfectly fine. But when I try to run the program, it is throwing me an error, and that is called as a runtime error. An example for runtime error is, you see this statement. Now this is a valid Python statement. Now a is equal to 10 into 1 slash 0. This is a valid Python statement. So suppose, right, if I am okay, if I am let us comment the remaining. Okay, all right. See, suppose, right, I'm executing this statement. Now a is, right, assigning some value. We are taking, say, 10 into say 4, and then, right, we are dividing it by 10. Okay. So let us see, right, what will be the output of this. Right? So we are getting, right, 4.0. So this is fine, right? We are able to get an output. So now while you are executing this program, right? So there are no syntax errors in this statement. But what will happen if I instead of 10, right, dividing it by 10, what will happen if I divide it by 0, right? Now this is going to so dividing it by 0, right? Any number divided by 0, right? You know that it is infinity, and whether, right, programming languages handle infinity, right? So that is a very big question, right? So let us see, right, how Python handles it. So it is throwing an error stating that it is a 0 division error or division by 0 error. Okay, so it is able to capture that you are trying to divide a number by 0, and this is not a valid operation that has been defined in Python. So it is throwing a runtime error. So this is what we mean by a runtime error, right? So this error, it is not a syntax error. Now this error we are getting it only, right, when we are running the program. See, in the case of interpreter, Python is an interpreter. There is no difference between compilation step and compilation step and execution step. Suppose, right, if you take a programming language like C, there are two steps. First step is you have to compile your program, and compiling your C program, it will produce an object file, and you have to take that object file. Second step will be you have to execute that object file. Okay, so there are two steps in executing a C program. One is your compilation step, the other one is you have to run that program. Okay, whereas, right, the programming languages where we have interpreters, we are not having two steps, we are having only a single step. Every statement in a Python program, it is executed by an interpreter. So every statement in Python program, it will be executed by interpreter, right? First it will be compiled, right? It checks for syntax errors. If it is not there, it will try to execute the statement. While it is executing, you may get an error. Okay, and suppose, right, suppose your program is having 10 lines. First it will take the first line, it will compile it, it will execute the first line, and then it will go to the next statement, second statement. Now second statement, it has to be compiled, and then it has to be executed. So like this, right, it takes one line at a time, compiles it, and then executes it, and then moves on to the next line. Whereas if you take C compiler, what it does is it will take the entire program, first compiles it. Okay, and after, right, if your compilation is successful, only then your program will be executed. Okay, and that is the reason why you are getting instead of a small error in your program, you will be getting right hundreds of errors. Okay, that you will be able to see. But here in Python, whenever right you are having if your program is having more than one error, you will always get only one error. You have to fix that error. Only then it will move on, right? It will move on because it will get stuck in that particular line. Okay, so which is very advantageous, right? When if you are a beginner to programming, right? So this is more user friendly, right, than your compilation steps. And dividing it by 0, how it knows that this is a statement involving divide by 0, how it is able to find this error, right? So it is able, first it has to check the syntax of the statement. Now after the syntax has been checked, it has to be converted into your object file. Now what do you mean by an object file is every program, the laptop, right, which I am using it to run this program. Now it is having a processor, right? And that processor, it will have an instruction set, right? You take the case of an AMD processor versus an Intel processor, right? The instruction sets of AMD processor, instruction sets of Intel processor, all are different, right? Now if you are running the same Python program, right? Now ultimately your processor is not going to understand your English like sentences like print, right? So we have to convert it into zeros and ones, and that is the objective of your compilation or interpretation. And how it is converting into zeros and ones? It will convert it into a language that is understandable by processor, right? And that language we call it as an assembly language. So any program that you write it in high-level languages, it has to be converted into a form or into a program that is understandable by processor, and that is your assembly language or machine language. So this program, when it is trying to convert it into this statement, when it is trying to convert it into assembly language, you are not getting any error. But when you are trying to run this program, what happens is equivalently, it will try to run that machine program, that machine language program that it has created. And when it is trying to do that, it is taking the first number, and then it is moving to one register, taking the second number, it is moving to another register, maybe right in one of the register is accumulator, and then it is trying to do a division. And when it is trying to do a division, you will get an error. That is what we mean by runtime error. So runtime error, we will get it right only when we run the program. During compilation, we won't get any error. Okay. So division by 0, this division by 0 error. So this is a runtime error. Okay. So similarly, so this is one error that we have. Another error is, suppose, right, what will happen if I have, say, b is equal to c plus 10. Now, okay, the point here is, now b is a variable, right? So it is present in left hand side. So it is going to be assigned a value from the right hand side. But what is in right hand side? Now right hand side is you have to take the value of c and then you have to add 10. Whether value of c is defined, now c is not defined prior. Okay. Now again, right, this is throwing an error. So if you see the error, so it is a name error. Okay. So there is a difference between error and exception. Error is what you get right during compilation, whereas exception is something, right, we get it during runtime. Okay. And in order to get an exception, your program is completely fine. You will not be able to catch any errors while you try to read the program. But while you're trying to run the program, you will get an error. That is what we mean by runtime error. And this is throwing an error, which is stating that it is a name error. Okay. So this is right another error. So this one is throwing a, so this one it throws division by 0 error or 0 division error, and this one it is throwing a name error. Let us see, right, another error. Now this one, so what is wrong with this statement? So here, right, again, right, this is a variable which is on your left hand side. Right hand side, it has to be evaluated and it has to be assigned. Now right hand side, it is having a string g, and then right to the string, we are concatenating an integer 10. So we have to get the, we are expecting the output to be, we are expecting the output to be g10. Okay, whereas right, the string that it has to be concatenated with the integer 10. Okay, or maybe right, you are assuming that sorry, so maybe right, you are assuming that you have to take the ASCII value of G, and then you have to add 10 to it. Okay, maybe that is the case. In that case, right, it will be ASCII value of A, right? So that is your 97. Okay, and you just go on, right? Like this, it go on, find the ASCII value of G, and then you add it into it. Maybe, right? That is what your intention of your program is. But while you are trying to run this program, what is happening? So it is giving us a type error. Okay. Now why it is giving a type error? Because this plus is an operator that is defined either to work on integer, whether C plus is a binary operand. Okay. No, sorry, binary operator. Now if it is a binary operator, your left side, it is going to have two operands. Your left operand and right operand. Left operand, okay, it has to be an integer. Right operand, if it has to be an integer, then plus will do the addition part. Now suppose if the two operands are strings, then it will do a concatenation part. Okay, so plus is this operator, it will work on integers, it will also work on strings. But what will happen if one operand is a string and another operand is a number? So what will happen? So in order to handle this case, right? In order to handle this case, so this is right. This is an operator that is not defined in your program, right? So let us see, right, what it is throwing. So it is throwing a type error. Okay. So a type error is, you see, it is saying that you are trying to concatenate a string, right, plus an integer, right? Can only concatenate str, not an integer into a str. Okay, str it means it is a string. So you are trying to do a concatenation of string and integer, which is not permitted in this language. Okay, so these are the different errors we have. Okay, and when your programs are very large, right, and if you want to know whenever your program is getting stopped because of one particular error, right, uh, and in that case, right, you want to exit your program by handling that error. Now why handling that error is very important? Okay, let us say, right, you are running a website, and then, right, in that website, uh, okay, let us say, right, you are running a website, and you are doing some operations in that website, right? All of a sudden it is giving you a blank page. Okay, let us say, right, it is giving you a blank page. Now when you are getting a blank page, or when you are getting a error page, okay, now why you are getting a blank page or error page is, if the error is not handled, right, then as a user of that website, I will be seeing an error page or blank page, which will be confusing to me. Okay, so rather than write, show an example. For example, write, this is the site, right, we use for admission. Okay. So this is a login page, right, we have. Now I'm trying to log in. Okay, now it is telling me that you are not an authorized user, right? So this is an error, something, right, something which is meaningful, right, which is thrown to me, right? As a user of this website, I want to know what is wrong with my username and password, right? So suppose, right, even, right, so you can say that your password is wrong. Suppose if your password is wrong, or whether yeah, such a user is not there, right? So what is happening with the Gmail, right? If you suppose, right, if you are trying to give an email address and try to log in, and that email address is not there, right, it will tell you a message that such a email address is not there. So these are the cases where we try to handle the error and then give some meaningful information to the user. Okay, so that is what, right, we mean by exception handling. So yeah, exception handling or error handling is, whenever your program is throwing an error, we want to throw some meaningful information to the user, rather than stating that it is a type error, it is a name error, it is a your zero division error. Okay, so rather than saying it like that, we have to uh, give the user some meaningful information regarding that error. And the part, right, what you do, right, how you do it, that is called as exception handling. Okay, so let us say, right, how to do exception handling. Now every exception handling, right? Exception handling is not present in your C or C++, right? So in Java, right, starting from Java, you are having this exception handling. Okay, in Python is also having exception handling. Now if you want to handle an exception, handle an error, okay, now exception is runtime error, so we are trying to handle a runtime error. Now we know that, right, a is equal to 10 into 1 slash 0 print a. So this is going to throw a runtime error, right? So that runtime error is division by 0. Now we want to handle this error. Now whenever this error occurs, what do we want to do, right? So whatever the statements that we expect that it will cause an error, so these are the statements I expect that it will cause an error. So those statements we try to place it inside a try block. So this is a try block. So in Python, right, we know that, right, the block of statements, how you define block of statements, we have to use a colon followed by indentation. So this is a colon, this is a try, right, followed by a colon, and these are the statements that are intended one tab to the right. So that means these statements belong to try block. Okay, so these statements belong to this try. And then, right, now now we are expecting that these statements will throw an error. So we have placed these statements inside a try block. And when an exception occurs, right? So in these statements, when an exception occurs, so that is what we capture it here. Okay, so there is an except block, right? For every try block, we will also have an except block. In this except block, this except block will get executed only when the statements in try block is throwing an error. In normal execution, right? In normal execution, this except block will not be executed. For example, take this case, 10 into 1 slash 40. I'm executing this program. It is producing, so a is equal to 10 into 1 slash 40, and we are able to get the value of a using this print statement. So there is no error in this program. There is no syntax error, there is no runtime error, there is no runtime error here. There is no division by 0. And as a result, it is a normal execution. So it is a normal execution. The statements in try block will get, when you are executing the statements in try block, it is not throwing an error. So whatever the statements that you have defined in except block, that is going to be skipped. Okay, so these statements are skipped. And then finally we are getting, it is moving on to the next statement in your program. The next statement in your program is, we are printing completed. Okay, so you are able to get the output as completed, right? So this is the program, right, that we want to execute. If it is not getting, if these statements are not producing an error, it will be a normal execution. So it will, after executing these statements, it will just proceed with the next statement in your program. Next statement in your program is, for your try block, the next statement in your program is what is present after this except. So this statement, this is the only statement that is present inside this except. So starting from here, it belongs to your main program. So from here, you try executing the remaining statement. So we will get complete. Okay. Now what will happen if we throw an error? If we get an error in this try block. So if we get an error in this try block, except block will get executed. Okay. And after except block is getting executed, then it will continue with the normal execution. Okay. Now, right. So you see here. Now we are doing a division by 0. So it is throwing a runtime error. So it is throwing an exception. Now this is placed inside a try block. So whenever it is throwing an exception, it will go to the except block. So in except block, uh, we have catched that exception, right? We have catched that error, and we are getting an error now. So it will go and execute whatever the statements we have defined inside that except block. So here we are having a print statement which is stating that program is throwing exception. So program is throwing exception. So that is getting printed because right, we are getting an error here. And after the statements in except block is getting executed, then your program will continue. This is very important. See, in a normal program, this is a normal program, which is without your try block or without your except block, right? So here, right, we are not having any. Here we are not having any try block. Now, what will happen when we are getting a error in a particular statement? So what is happening? See, we are getting an error in the first statement, right? So in this statement, we are getting an error. The moment you are getting an error, it is throwing that error and it is not executing the statements further, right? So these statement, right, print a or b is equal to c plus 10 or d is equal to g plus 10. So these are not executed. These may also be a valid statement. Okay. For example, write see the same equivalent. Suppose I say here completed. Okay, whether I'm getting this statement completed? No. The reason is right. As soon as you get that error, your execution stops. Okay, your execution will stop. But whereas, right, if you handle that error, okay, if you handle that error by using a try block and by using an except block, after throwing this exception, okay, after the error has been thrown, it is just continuing the program execution. Okay, it will just continue the program execution. Now we are throwing, it is throwing an error. We have catched the error. We have printed them, but still it is continuing the execution of the program, and that is the reason why we are getting completed here. Okay, so this is right. This is how we handle an exceptions that occur in your program. Now regarding errors and exceptions, you can read it from your Python documentation. Right, you see here. So this is a zero division error. This is a name error. This is a type error. Right, and how to handle them. Now, so let us see right this example. Okay. Now let us say right you want to ask the user to enter. You want to ask the user to enter a number. Okay. So I'm removing these things, right? Now we are having a simple a statement, right? Which will get the input from the user, right? And we are asking the user to enter a number, right? Now even right, we can try this without your try block and except block. So this is the only statement I have. So this is the statement I have. I'm executing, right? And now I am executing this program. Now let us say after this I have print. Now I'm executing this program. Now it is asking me to enter a number. Let us say I'm entering 10. When I'm entering a 10, so it is converting it into a 10, right? And then we are getting an answer. So it is a normal execution, right? Now what will happen, right? If I again execute this program, now instead of entering a number, I enter A. Okay. Now what is happening? Now when I enter A, I'm getting an error. This is your runtime error. It is stating that it is a value error. Okay. So which means that this int, right? It is expecting a string, but you have provided it is expecting a string, right? And the result of this, it has to be a base 10. That means, right, the result of this int, right, it has to be a decimal number. But what we have is a Okay, so only, right, if you are entering, right, any valid digits, right, this int is going to work. This int method, it is going to work. If you are entering any strings, this int is going to throw an error, right? A string or a character, it is going to throw this value error. Now how to handle this error, right? So we have to place this statement inside your try. You have placed it inside your try. Now when we have this except, right, except block, now we will say that the program is throwing an error. Program is throwing an error. Now the program is not throwing the error. Then we have to print. Let us say we have to print x, value of x. I'm execute. Let us execute this program. I'm entering 10. See, the program is not throwing error, so we are getting the output as 10. Okay, so we are getting the output as 10. Now suppose, right, if I'm entering other than a digit, okay, now we are getting, right, the program is throwing an error. Okay, so this has been catched here. Okay, so this has been catched here. Now why we are getting another error, right? That is a name error, because X is present inside your try block. Okay, and then, right, X is not visible to some other blocks. Now let us say, right, I initialize this X here. So now, right, we are able to get it. So now, right, our objective is to get the input X from the user. If the user enters a number, then right, no issue. If the user is entering a character, then it will throw an error. The int method will throw an error. Okay. Now let us say whenever the user enters enters other than a digit. Okay. So we are expecting a number. The user is entering a string. Now, right, you have to again, right, ask the user. You have to repeatedly ask the user to enter a number. Right, you have to say that you haven't entered a number, right, so please enter a number again. Okay, so rather than asking the user to enter only one time, now we can ask the user to enter it, right, enter it again and again until he enters a number. Okay, because, right, we want somehow the program, it has to continue, right? So you can't just say, you can't just give only one attempt to the user and say that, right, this is throwing an error. We have to, right, give the next attempt to the user. Okay, you have made a mistake, you try to enter it again. Okay, so like for that, right, so let us introduce a while now. Okay, so that is what we have, in the documentation. Now this is the documentation we are taking. I'm taking it from the documentation. So this is where we have the try block. Now what we have here is a while true. Now while true, inside this while true, we are having a try block. Now why we are having a try block? Because we are expecting that this statement might throw an error. Okay, and that error is what happens when user enters other than a digit, other than a number. And then if the user has entered a valid integer, if the user has entered an integer, then if it is not throwing any error, it will come to the next statement. What is the next statement? Next statement is we are breaking this loop. Okay, we are breaking this while loop. So it will come out of this. It will come out of this while loop. Okay, and then it will just proceed with the normal execution. So normal execution is completed. Right? Okay, so it has to be indented exactly to the place where we have tried. Okay. So I'm entering say 10, no problem, right? So 10 is a valid integer, so it will go on to execute the next statement. So we are getting a break. Now it will break this while loop. Now if you see what are all the statements that are comprising this while loop, this entire statement. Okay, so these entire statements belongs to this while loop. So while you are using this break, what is happening? It will come out of this while. So it will come to this particular statement and it will try continuing the execution. So we are getting completed. Okay, now suppose I'm entering a character. See, it is saying that oops, right, that was no valid number, try again. Now where we are getting this output. Okay? So if you see here, okay, now we are inputting the number. Now we are inputting the number, and after that, right, it is not a valid number, so it will throw an exception here. Okay, it will throw an error here, and that error it is handled using your except block. So it will come to the except block. In except block, now this, right, we are expecting only a value error here. Okay, so here, right, we just say that it is a value error. Or right, you can even say simply an except. That is also fine. Okay. Now, when this statement is throwing an error, it will come to this block. And in this block, now we are printing that, oops, right, that was not a valid number, try again. After this statement is getting executed, after this except block is executed, now it will continue the execution. Now, as I told you, that the difference between a normal program and the program with the try except block is, in a normal execution, when an error is thrown, execution will be stopped. Whereas, right, with the try except block, whenever it is throwing an error, except block will be executed and it will continue with the program execution. Now, if you continue with the program execution, what is the next statement that will get executed? Right? The next statement is this statement is inside a while loop. So it will continue this while loop. So it will go to again while true. Okay. Again, right, you are coming over to the try block. So here again we are getting the input from the user. Now again, let us say again the user enters a character. So it will throw an error. It will come to the except block. Okay. So it will print that that was not a valid number. Again, try again. So again, right, it will move back to the next statement. Next statement is the next iteration of while, because it is inside a while. Okay. So again, go to the next iteration of while. Again, try to get a number from the user. Suppose the user has entered again a invalid number. Again, right, this will be thrown as an error. It will not go to the next statement here. Okay. So it will go to the except block. Directly it will go to the except block. So in except block, again, you say that that was not a valid number. What will happen if the, again, right, it will go to the next iteration of while. Suppose if the user has entered a valid integer, then in that case, right, suppose if the user enters 10, it is a valid integer, it will not throw any error. So it will go to the next statement after this x, right? Next statement after this x is we are having a break statement. So what is break? So break is it will come out of this entire while. Okay. So this break, it will try to cause the control to move on to line number 7. So it will come to here. So here this is an empty line, so it will continue with the next line. So here we have print completed. So completed will be printed. So let us execute this program, right? So if it is a normal execution, right, no issue, right? We will be getting completed. Now, if it is an error, right? So if I'm entering an A, so it is saying that this is the error I get, right? Oops, that was no valid number. Try again. So again, right, it is continuing with the while iteration of while. So again, it is asking me to enter a number. So suppose, right, I enter, say, again it is not a valid number, because, right, while you are trying to convert this A or OP, right, into your integer, it will throw that error value. So again, right, let us say I'm entering another string. Again, right, this is not a valid number. And what will happen if I enter 900? Now 900 is a valid number. So it is getting stopped. Okay. Okay. So whether you are able to understand this, any doubts you have? So this is a basic, right, exception handling. Okay. So one thing, right, that we can add it to the existing code is, now when your program is when you are expecting your program to throw more than one error. Okay. For example, right, so here we will be getting a zero division error, right? And let us say, right, I take the next statement. Now this statement, it will throw placing the statement right next to it. Again, let's take this statement. I'm placing it again here. Now if you see, the first statement itself, it will throw an error. So it will go to the except block and it will say program is throwing exception, and it will go to completed. The program is throwing exception and it is saying completed. Now this, right, we don't know from which statement we are getting this error, because, right, this statement, right, it may throw an error. This statement, it may throw an error. This statement, it may throw an error. Now if you want to identify exactly, right, in which statement, right, this error has occurred, this exception is being handled, for that, right, so if it is coming from a division by zero error, or whether it is because of a name error, or whether, right, it is because of a value error. Okay. So here we have an option that If it is a value error, then then you handle this. Okay, so here you can say that the program is throwing value error. Okay, and suppose if it is a type error, okay, then let us print that it is throwing a type error. And then it is a zero division error. So let us say the program is throwing one of the denominator, right? Denominator is 0. Okay. Now we are having 3 errors now, right? So let us see, so what is happening, what is happening in your program. So let us execute this. Now now the first error we get is it is coming from this statement. So this statement is we are getting a division by 0 error. So there are for the same try block we are actually having 3 different except blocks. Now this except block will get executed only if it is a value error. If your program, if this try block is throwing a value error. Suppose if this try block is throwing a type error, then this except block will get executed. If your program is throwing a zero division error, then this except block will get executed. That is the idea. Okay, so for the same try block, we can have multiple except blocks. Okay, so the first statement, it is throwing an error. So that is a division by 0 error, right? Zero division error. And then here we have printed denominator 0. So we are getting this output as denominator 0 and we got completed. Suppose if there is no error in the first statement, then we will get the error in this statement, right? Now this is a name error. So this is a name error. If you see here, whether a name error is handled here, no, because this except block, it is for value error. This except block is for type error. This except block is for zero division error. So what will happen if I get a error that is other than handled, right? So if it is not handled, finally we can write some except block here, which will say that some other exception. Okay, so we can write it like this. Now if you see, now we got a name error. So it is when it is a name error, it is not matching with these cases: value error, type error, zero division error. So it will come to this particular case. So this is a very generic exception. So here this will handle all kinds of errors. Okay, but only if it is not value, if it is not type error, if it is not a zero division error. So this is like a switch case. Here we are having a switch case. Okay, so if it is a generic, it will come and print some other exception. So it is printing some other exception, and then it is continuing the execution. So we are getting completed. Okay, suppose here also we are not getting any error. Let us say this is because of 10. Okay, so now we will not get an error. Now we will get an error at D. Okay, so let us see what is happening. So we are able to get A is 1.0. We are able to get B is your 11.0, right? But this statement, it is throwing an error. Okay, so what error it is throwing? So it is throwing a type error. Okay, so it will come to the except block for type error. So it is printing that program is throwing type error, and after this except block is getting executed, it will skip all the other except blocks, right? And it will continue with the normal execution of your program. So it will come start executing from 16. Okay, then it is printing complete. Okay, so this is how we handle exceptions. We handle multiple exceptions in your program. So is it clear? Any doubts you have? Okay, so we will stop here, right? So from tomorrow, we will see how this exception handling can be applied to files. So thank you.